లాగిన్ అవ్వచ్చు లాగౌట్ అవ్వచ్చు.
Good morning, students. Today we'll continue with the topic Introduction to Mycology. In the last class, we have discussed a few terminology in mycology and some classifications that are classifications in mycology. So, what terms you have learnt in the last class? Hyphae. Hyphae is one new term you have learnt in the last class. And septate hyphae, aseptate hyphae, mycelium, and the types of classification, two types of classifications you have learnt. What are they? One is morphological classification and the other one is system classification. In morphological classification, fungi are divided into 4 classes like yeasts, yeast-like fungi, molds and dimorphic fungi. They are the 4 classes in morphological classification. In systemic classification, basing on this spore production, the classification is done like ascospores, zygospores, fungi imperfecti, and basidiomycetes, ascomycetes, basidiomycetes, fungi imperfecti, and what other one is zygomycetes. Those are the 4 divisions in systematic classification. Today we'll learn about some diseases caused by these fungi. So what are the diseases caused by fungi? That is in today's class we'll see regarding the diseases. One second. So classification of fungal diseases. It is divided into 4 types of fungal infections. One is superficial mycosis, deep mycosis, then opportunistic mycosis and mycotoxicosis. So fungal infections, mainly they infect the skin, hair, nail, mucosa. So mostly to the epidermal layers, the fungal infections are common. Not only epidermal layers, they can go deep and cause infections like subcutaneous infections, and they can even damage the internal organs. So depending upon the site involved, the fungal infections are superficial mycosis, which infects skin, hair, nail and mucosa. Deep mycosis, which infect fungi infecting skin, subcutaneous tissue and multiple organs. Opportunistic mycosis, it is caused by opportunistic or commensal fungi which are present on our skin, and especially they are seen in immunocompromised people. Immunocompromised people suffer with this opportunistic fungal infections. And mycotoxicosis caused by toxins released by some fungi, especially seen in crop production and in storage items. In foods stored for long periods, you can see this toxin production from the fungus. When such food is consumed, it results in mycotoxicosis. So there are 4 types of fungal diseases: superficial mycosis, deep mycosis, opportunistic mycosis and mycotoxicosis. This is the picture showing the epidermal layers of the skin. So what are the epidermal layers? Stratum corneum, stratum lucidum, stratum granulosum, stratum spinosum, stratum basae. These are different layers of epidermis. And what are the skin appendages? Skin appendages are hair and nails. Hair is present all over the body except on lips, palms and soles, and the nails grow from matrix. These are the skin appendages. So fungi infect mostly the epidermal layers of the skin and skin appendages like hair and nail. Most commonly, the common fungal infections affect the epidermal layers of the skin and skin appendages. When we go, first division is superficial mycosis. Superficial mycosis is again divided into surface infections and cutaneous infections. Surface infections are confined to dead layers of the skin and its appendages. Since they are confined only to dead layers of the skin, there is no inflammatory response. That means there is no redness, there is no rise in temperature, no pain, etc. They are confined only to dead layers of the skin. Examples are Tinea versicolor, Tinea nigra and Pyetra. Cutaneous infections are confined to cornified layers of the skin. Just now we have seen the cornified layers of the skin: stratum basal, stratum granulosum, stratum spinosum, stratum epidermidis. These are the cornified layers of the skin. And cutaneous infections are confined to cornified layers of the skin as well as skin appendages, and it results in inflammatory and allergic responses. It results in inflammatory and allergic responses. Examples to that fungal infection is dermatophytosis. This is the first superficial mycosis. Tinea vesicola. There are 3 superficial mycosis. What are they? Superficial infections, 3 are there: Tinea versicolor, Tinea nigra, and Pietra. And dermatophytosis is a cutaneous infection. Now we are going to see this surface infection. Tinea versicolor is a surface infection caused by fungi Malassezia furfur, which is characterized by white-colored hypopigmented patches on the epidermal layers or dead layers of the skin. So in the picture you can see white-colored hypopigmented patches on the dead layers of the skin or on the upper layers of the epidermis is caused by Malassezia furfur. And the second superficial mycosis is Tinea nigra, caused by Hortea wernicki. It is a pigmented fungi. Tinea nigra is caused by Hortea wernicki, which is characterized by hyperpigmented macular patches on the sole. We can see the hyperpigmented patches on the sole, and it is caused by a pigment producing fungi called demittious fungi. Pigment producing fungi are called demittious fungi or phioid fungi. And the third superficial mycosis or surface infection is Pietra, which is again divided into 2 types: white Pietra and black Pietra, which mainly infects the hair follicle or hair shafts. Nodular lesions are seen on the hair shafts. Black Pietra is caused by Pietra hortae, and white Pietra is caused by fungi Trichosporum vigili. Trichosporum vigili causes white Pietra, which we see white color nodules on the hair shafts, and black Pietra is caused by Pietra hortae, which we see black nodules on the hair shaft. It is also a surface infection. Then going to cutaneous infection, here we can see the manifestations on skin, hair and nail. Inflammatory changes also you can see because they are going, the fungi are invading little deep into the epidermal layers. That's why you can see the inflammatory changes. So on the skin you can see the redness, rising temperature, pain, itching are present in skin infections. And on the hair you can see there is loss of hair, patchy, loss of hair on the scalp, and white scales are produced on the scalp. And in the nail you can see the normal morphology of the nail is lost. The nails are brittle, and there is change in color of the nail also. So these 3 conditions, that is the infection, fungal infection to skin, hair and nails are called altogether are called dermatophytosis caused by dermatophyte fungi. Examples: Trichophyton, Microsporum and Epidermophyton. These are cutaneous infections which come in superficial mycosis. So in superficial mycosis you have seen surface infections and cutaneous infections. What are the 3 surface infections? Tinea versicolor, characterized by hypopigmented patch; nigra, characterized by hyperpigmented patch; Pietra, which is fungal infection to hair follicles; and dermatophytosis, which is the cutaneous fungal infection to skin, hair and nail. Then next category is deep mycosis. In deep mycosis, it is again divided into subcutaneous mycosis and deep mycosis again. In subcutaneous mycosis, the first example is mycetoma. Mycetoma is caused by fungi Modurella mycetomatis and Pseudolescherichia boidae. They cause the fungal infection mycetoma. It is a chronic granulomatous condition characterized by discharging sinuses. Mainly affects the extremities, limbs, and it is common in farmers who walk barefoot in farms, and it is caused by the saprophytic fungi, Modurella mycetomatis and Pseudolescherichia boidae. The second subcutaneous mycosis is sporotrichosis caused by Sporothrix shankai. The fungus name is Sporothrix shankai, which is caused by the sporotrichosis is caused by inoculation of fungus from a rose bush thorn. Inoculated penetrating injury with a spore or thorn from a rose bush. Initial skin lesion is with or without ulceration. Sometimes lymphocutaneous spread may also happen, and it can lead to the damage to bone, and also sometimes systemic manifestations can happen. It can even affect the lung and central nervous system. So sporotrichosis, which is caused by penetrating injury from rosebush thorn, it causes subcutaneous mycosis affecting the subcutaneous tissue. Sometimes it goes deep even to the bone, and it may affect some internal organs also. The third subcutaneous mycosis is chromomycosis or chromoblastomycosis, which is characterized by wart-like or verrucous lesions in the subcutaneous tissue, and it is caused by pheoid fungi. You see, you can see black colored wart-like lesions. So it is a pheoid fungi, Fonseca and Phyalophora. It is caused by chromomycosis, and chromoblastomycosis is caused by Fonseca and Phyalophora pheoid fungi or demititious fungi. They cause wart-like or verrucous lesions on the subcutaneous tissue. Then the fourth subcutaneous mycosis is rhinosporidiosis caused by the fungi Rhinosporidium seaveri, which affects mainly in the nasal cavity. It is a chronic granulomatous condition occurring in the nasal cavity, which is characterized by a polyp-like growth in the nasal cavity, which is usually affects the persons who are who go into the stagnant water or who goes to swimming in contaminated water. In such people, this condition rhinosporidiosis happen, and it is caused by fungus Rhinosporidium seaveri. And deep mycosis. Not that fungi only affects the skin, subcutaneous tissue. Sometimes this fungus can go deep, deep through the lymphatic spread or through hematogenous spread. It can go deep and invade other internal organs like lungs, heart, central nervous system, kidney, etc. And it results in some conditions like blastomycosis caused by Blastomyces dermatidis, Agelomyces dermatidis, and paracoccidiomycosis caused by Paracoccidioides brasiliensis, coccidiomycosis caused by Coccidioides immitis, histoplasmosis caused by Histoplasma capsulatum. So these all are systemic mycosis or systemic fungal infections. Now you have, different fungal infections: surface fungal infections, subcutaneous fungal infections, and deep fungal infections which invade the internal organs, that is systemic fungal infections. And the other category is opportunistic mycosis. What are these opportunistic mycosis? These are opportunistic mycosis, a condition caused by opportunistic fungi or commensal fungi which are present on the skin, and they cause damage or they cause fungal infections in immunocompromised people. You know who are the immunocompromised people? They are people with low immunity, especially seen in HIV persons or AIDS persons, acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, or those suffering with metabolic disorders like diabetes mellitus or collagen vascular diseases like SLE, or the persons having malignant neoplasms, or who are on steroids, who are having neutropenia. Those people whose immunity levels are low are affected mainly by this commensal fungi, and they include Candida, Cryptococcus, Aspergillus, Mucor, and Rhizopus. So these are opportunistic fungal infections caused by Candida, which is a commensal or flora on the skin, Cryptococcus, Aspergillus, Mucor, and Rhizopus. These are opportunistic fungal infections seen in immunocompromised people. Then what is mycotoxicosis? Mycotoxicosis is a condition caused by consuming fungi which are affected, which produce toxins. What are toxins produced by the fungi? They are called mycotoxins. Mycotoxins are toxins produced by the fungi, especially seen in crops, in the fields and in storage. When such food or such items, food items are consumed, then it results in a condition called mycotoxicosis. So in which food items do you see this mycotoxin production? In food items like maize, groundnut, oil seed, cotton seed, then wheat, barley, maize, rye, hay, etc. In those food items, you see the production of mycotoxins. Examples of mycotoxins include aflatoxin, which is produced by fungus Aspergillus species. Aflatoxin is produced by fungus Aspergillus species. Ochratoxin is also produced by Aspergillus species. Fuminosins is produced by Fusarium species. Fuminosins and T2 toxins is produced by fungus Fusarium. Ochratoxin is produced by Penicillium species. Ergot alkaloids produced by Clariceps. You have to remember these different types of mycotoxins. Toxins produced by different fungi in food items, in the crops, or in storage. In godowns, these food items are stored in huge amounts. So when they are exposed to some moisture or when they are in damp condition, in that food item, the fungal growth is seen and they produce these toxins called mycotoxins. And when these food items are consumed, it results in a condition called mycotoxicosis. There are studies that when food items consumed with the food items with mycotoxins are consumed, it results in hepatomas in some birds. It results in some carcinomas in humans. So it is very dangerous. It should not eat food contaminated with this toxins because it is carcinogenic. You should be careful while eating food like groundnut food items like groundnut, maize, etc. You have to check whether they are in good condition or not. Now, next step is the laboratory diagnosis. In the introduction, we also study about the laboratory diagnosis in general. So you have learned different clinical conditions: surface infections, deep infections, systemic infections, different types of fungal infections affecting skin, hair, nail, subcutaneous tissue. Like that, you have learned different different fungal infections. So depending upon the type of fungal infection, you have to collect the specimen. So in superficial mycosis, the specimens include skin scrapings, infected hair, nail, mucosal scrapings. So in superficial mycosis, which affects mainly skin, hair, and nail, the samples will be skin scraping, infected hair, nail, and mucosal scrapings. In subcutaneous mycosis, which is involving the subcutaneous tissue, here you can see the pus discharges and some serous discharge coming from the infections. You can collect the samples like pus, discharge, biopsy samples, etc. In systemic mycosis, which affects the internal organs, you can collect samples like sputum, urine, pus, cerebrospinal fluid, stool sample or feces sample, and blood. So these are the different samples depending upon the clinical condition and at what level the fungal infection is seen, you can collect the samples. So how will you collect the skin scraping? So first you have to clean the area with 70% alcohol or ethyl alcohol or isopropyl alcohol, and then with taking a sterile scalpel, you have to scrape the lesion. So there will be some lesion, white hypopigmented or hyperpigmented patches you can see in superficial mycosis. On the skin, the epidermal layers of the skin should be scraped with a sterile scalpel, and that you can collect in a paper fold or in a black paper. You can black paper fold you can collect and you can send to the laboratory. Infected hair is also, the procedure is like you have to clean the area, and then you can pluck the hair with the help of a forceps, and you can pack the hair in a paper fold. Nail, you can take a nail cutter or a scissor or pair of scissors, or with a scalpel you can cut the brittle part of the nail. The whole thickness of the nail should be included, and the nail is packed in a paper fold and it is sent to the laboratory. Mucosal scraping, expertise people should collect the corneal scraping after giving xylocaine injection. The corneal scrapings are collected and sent to the lab. So these are the different samples collected for superficial fungal infections. In subcutaneous fungal infections, you can collect pus, discharge and biopsy samples. And these are the sputum, urine samples can be collected in systemic fungal infections. So once the sample is brought to the laboratory, what is the first thing you do? So you have to see the what you have to see under the microscope. Microscope is the first step to observe the pathogen. To observe the fungus, first step is microscopy. So directly from the sample, how will you observe the fungi under microscope? You have to do some procedures like KOH preparation, potassium hydroxide. KOH is potassium hydroxide preparation. Then you can do gram stain or India ink or Nigrosin stain you can do. Calcofluor white stain is there. LPCP means lactophenol cotton blue mount you can do, and there are some stains for histopathological samples like periodic acid skip stain, Gomoris methylamine silver stain, mucicarmine stain and Fontana stain. So once the sample is brought to the laboratory, first you observe under the microscope. The sample is treated with some reagents and it is observed under the microscope. So what are the different procedures you do to observe under the microscope? One is KOH preparation, gram stain, third one India ink, fourth calcofluor white stain, LPCB and histopathological stain. One by one we'll see. First one is potassium hydroxide mount or KOH mount, commonly done for visualizing the fungal elements from the sample. So the sample like skin scraping or nail or hair, it is treated with potassium hydroxide. It is treated with potassium hydroxide. Usually 10 to 20% of KOH is used, and sometimes even 20 to 40% KOH is also used for some samples. So what is the use of using, what is the purpose of using this potassium hydroxide? It will digest the keratinized tissue and some debris present in the sample. What does this KOH do? It will digest the keratinized tissue and some debris present in the sample, and it makes the fungal elements clearly visible. So fungal elements can be clearly seen after treating the sample with potassium hydroxide. Usually for skin scraping, 10% KOH is used. For hair or nail, hair and nail, 20 to 40% KOH is used. So the sample is mixed with the potassium hydroxide in a test tube. It is mixed with the sample is taken in a test tube, or the sample, if it is a scraping, it can be taken on a slide and a few drops of potassium hydroxide is added and a cover slip is placed and it is heated gently. For a few minutes, it is heated gently. So the digestion of the keratin takes place and the debris are removed by the action of potassium hydroxide, and the fungal elements are clearly seen under the microscope. So what fungal elements you can see? Budding yeast-like cells, pseudohyphae, and any other fungal elements like septate hypha, aseptate hypha can be observed under the microscope. For biopsy samples, a strong concentration of potassium hydroxide hydroxide is used, or even 10% KOH can be used, but incubated for a prolonged period. That is, overnight incubation is done for biopsy samples. Glycerol can also be added, which prevents drying. So the sample should not be dried. No, to inhibit the drying, glycerol 10% glycerol is added. Dimethyl sulfoxide is added to help in, which helps in tissue digestion. So dimethyl sulfoxide, DMS, it is called as DMSO, it helps in tissue digestion. So what is the first method? Method in microscopy, KOH mount or potassium hydroxide mount, 10 to 40% KOH is used. Then second one is gram staining. You know the gram staining procedure. The sample is taken on a slide. The smear of the sample is taken on a slide and gram staining procedure is done. Gram staining procedure is done, and Candida, how you see under gram stain, violet color budding yeast-like cells is seen under microscope along with pseudohyphae. And this is the picture of Cryptococcus. Cryptococcus is seen as violet colored budding yeast-like cells which are round shaped. Candida is oval shaped and Cryptococcus is round shaped budding yeast-like cells along with the capsule is seen after performing the gram stain procedure for Cryptococcus. For Cryptococcus, usually we do a negative staining called India ink staining or nigrosin staining. India ink or nigrosin staining. So Cryptococcus, it usually causes meningitis in immunocompromised people. It causes meningitis in immunocompromised people where the CSF sample is taken and that CSF sample is treated with India ink or nigrosin and it is taken on a slide. A drop of CSF is taken on a slide and a drop of India ink or nigrosin stain is added and a cover slip is placed and it is observed under the microscope. Then you can see under a dark background, bright colored, round shaped budding yeast-like cells, which indicates the confirmation, which indicates that it is Cryptococcus or it confirms the presence of Cryptococcus. The capsule also is seen as a big halo surrounding the budding yeast-like cell. Halo is seen around the budding yeast against a dark background. India ink or nigrosin is a negative stain. Negative stain means bright colored objects are seen against dark background. That is called negative staining. It is done for Cryptococcus where you can see bright colored budding is with a big halo against a dark background. Then calcofluor white stain, it is a fluorescent staining. So the sample, the scraping is taken on a slide, it is mixed with KOH for tissue digestion or keratin digestion or debris removal. It is mixed with the KOH and then a drop of calcofluor white can also be added. And for fluorescent, this is a fluorescent staining technique. Calcofluor white stain, calcofluor white is added and a cover slip is placed and seen under fluorescent microscope. This calcofluor goes and attaches to the mannan and glucans present in the cell wall and they fluoresce under the UV light, and they fluoresce under UV light and they are seen as bright budding yeast-like cells or in apple green color. This is the fluorescent staining. And the next one is in microscopy is LPCB mount or lactophenol cotton blue mount, which is widely used for visualizing fungi under microscope. This LPCB contains lactic acid, alpha-lactic acid, phenol, cotton blue, and glycerol. What is the use of lactic acid? It preserves the morphology of fungi. Then phenol is a disinfectant. Glycerol prevents drying and cotton blue stains the fungal elements. So most of the samples are treated with LPCB or mainly especially the growth from the culture is treated with the LPCB and LPCB mounts are done to visualize fungi under microscope. They are seen in nice blue color, the fungal elements like the septate hyphae or aseptate hyphae or the conidiospores or the sporangiospores, conidiophore, sporangium spore. Those are the elements seen such elements are seen in a nice blue color, cotton blue color. It is called LPCP mount or lactophenol cotton blue mount. So this is LPCB showing the picture of Canada albicans. There you can see budding yeast-like cells, big round chlamydospores are seen. Then pseudohyphae is seen. This is the picture of Canada albicans, LPCB mount. Background is blue, and even the hyphae, chlamydospores, all are stained in blue color. Next is histopathological stains, usually done for tissue samples. Histopathological stainings are done for tissue samples. There are 4 histopathological stains. One is PAS, periodic acid-skip stain. It is used for demonstrating fungal elements from biopsy tissues. After performing this stain, when you see under the microscope, the fungi appear deep pink or magenta color, and the nuclei will stain blue. And PAS stains only the live fungi. This is the picture of Canada, which is seen as pink, deep pink pseudohyphae or magenta pink pseudohyphae. And the nuclei are stained blue here and there. And it stains only live fungi. Next one is GMS stain or Gomori methylamine silver stain. It is an alternative to periodic acid-skip stain. It stains both live and dead fungi. PAS stain only stains live fungi, whereas GMS stain stains both live and dead fungi. Here you can see the fungi as black. Fungi appear black against pale green background. Against green background, if the fungi are seen as black color, yeasts or yeast-like cells, it stains the polysaccharide component of the cell wall. And the third tissue stain is mucicarmine stain. It is usually used for staining the carminophilic cell wall of Cryptococcus and Rhinosporidium. You can see pink colored budding yeast-like cells after staining with this mucicarmine stain, which is used for staining Cryptococcus and Rhinosporidium. You can see pink colored budding yeast-like cells. Then the fourth stain is Masson-Fontana stain, used for staining phioid fungi or demoteous fungi. Phioid or demoteous fungi produces black colored pigmentation on the skin. So the fungi are also seen as black budding yeast or hyphae or septate or biseptate black hyphae are seen in a green background. This is Masson-Fontana stain. So there are 4 tissue staining procedures. What are the histopathological stains? 4 are there: periodic acid-skip stain, Gomori methylamine silver stain, mucicarmine stain, and Masson-Fontana stain. Names you have to remember, and where it is used also you have to remember. So in microscopy, you have learned the sample after coming to the laboratory. First step, what you will do microscopy. How will you observe the fungi under the microscope? Directly you cannot observe the fungus from the sample. You have to treat the sample with some reagents. So first common widely used preparation is KOH preparation or potassium hydroxide mount. Then gram staining you can do. Then India ink or Nigdosin stain, which is an Egdo stain used for Cryptococcus. Chalcofluor white stain is a fluorescent staining method used for staining fungi using chalcofluor white. LPCB mount or lactophenol cotton blue mount, which is also widely used for culture samples. Then histopathological stains. Histopathological stains usually for tissue samples or biopsy samples. Histopathological stains are used. What 4 are there? What are they? Periodic acid-skip stain, Gomori methylamine silver stain, mucicarmine stain, and Masson-Fontana stain. This is microscopy. After visualizing the sample under microscope, some sample is preserved to for culture procedure, for isolation of the fungi from the sample. Next step after microscopy, what you will do? You have to isolate the fungi from the sample. That is called culture. Isolation of fungus from the specimen or sample is called culture, which is done in the laboratory using a different media. Not bacterial media is not used for growing the fungi. Separate media are there available for growing fungi in the laboratory. And what are those media? Tabarotes, dextrose agar, cornmeal agar, Reinhardt infusion agar, birdseed agar or nigerseed agar, and chrome agar. These are the different type of media used for growing fungi. Most widely used media is Tabarotes, dextrose agar, commonly called as SDA. SDA is widely used or commonly used for most of the fungi grow on SDA. It is most commonly used media. It contains peptone, dextrose, and it is at an acidic pH. pH is 5.6. Observe the pH is 5.6, which is an acidic pH, and because it is acidic pH, it may not support some pathogenic fungi. That's why some modification is done to SDA. It is called Emmons modification, which is neutral SDA, which means the pH is raised to 7.2. Commonly, SDA has pH, acidic pH 5.6, but some pathogenic fungi are not growing in that acidic pH. That's why the pH is made to neutral, that is 7.2. It is called Emmons modification. So Tabarotes, dextrose agar is the most common or widely used media for growing fungus. Next media is cornmeal agar, which is a nutritionally deficient media used for stimulation of chlamydospore production. You know, Candida albicans produces thick-walled spores called chlamydospores. Candida albicans produces thick-walled spores called chlamydospores when grown in nutritionally deficient media called cornmeal agar and even in rice starch agar. The third media is Reinhardt BHI agar or blood agar, which is an enriched media used for enriched media which contains blood. It is used for growing fastidious fungi. Fastidious fungi require some additional nutrients for their growth. What are the fastidious fungi? Cryptococcus and Histoplasma are fastidious fungi which are grown on BHI agar or blood agar. Like birdseed agar or nigerseed agar is used for growing Cryptococcus. It is the selective media for growing the fungi Cryptococcus. I told you Cryptococcus is a true yeast. Cryptococcus comes in true yeast and it affects mainly immunocompromised people. It causes meningitis in immunocompromised people. So the CSF sample can be inoculated on the selective media birdseed agar or nigerseed agar. Then the next one is chrome agar, which is or Candida medium. It is selective as well as differential medium for speciation of Candida. Chrome agar, it is a differential media for growing Candida, and the speciation of Candida can be done on chrome agar. It gives different chrome agar, give different colors to different species of Candida. Like that, you can identify the different species of Candida. So those are the different media used for growing fungi. SDA, cornmeal agar, birdseed agar, nigerseed agar, denthophyte test medium. Like that, there are different agars available for growing fungi. And what are the culture conditions required for growing fungi? At what temperature you need to maintain the growth of the fungi for the growth, and which incubator you have to use, for how long you have to incubate for the appearance of the growth. Like those conditions are also important, and they are called culture conditions. So fungi grow at a temperature range 25 to 30 degrees centigrade. And dimorphic fungi can grow even at 37 degrees and also 25 degrees. At both temperatures, dimorphic fungi can grow, but most of the fungi grow at a temperature range of 25 to 30 degrees centigrade, and they grow at low temperatures than bacteria. So what is required? Which incubator is required? Biological oxygen demand. It is called BOD incubator, biological oxygen demand incubator, which maintains the low temperature. It is capable of maintaining low temperature. Incubation period is 2 to 3 weeks, not in a day or two. You have to observe the fungal growth for up to 3 weeks. And the media contains cyclohexamide, chloramphenicol, and gentamicin-like antibiotics to inhibit the bacterial growth. Otherwise, in that media, bacteria can grow. Before the fungus grows, the bacteria itself can grow first. That's why to inhibit or stop the bacterial growth, what you have to do, you have to add antibiotics so that the bacterial growth is inhibited, and only it will enhance only the fungal growth. So once the fungus is grown on the culture media, you have to identify the what type of fungi it is. So identification is again two types: macroscopic identification and microscopic identification. Macroscopic means with your eye you have to visualize and you have to come to an idea which fungus it is. So what characters, what features you observe for macroscopic identification? You have to see the rate of growth, you have to see whether pigment is produced or not, you have to observe the texture of the growth, and colony topography also you have to observe. One by one we'll see. Rate of growth. This comes under macroscopic appearance. Once the fungus is grown on the media, you have to observe whether it is a fast grower, rapid grower, or a slow grower. If it is a rapid grower, it grows in less than 5 days. Slow grower takes more than 1 week. It goes beyond 2 weeks or 3 weeks also. It is a slow grower. So most of the yeast grow very fast. They are rapid growers. And even fungi causing opportunistic infections also grow very fast. And whereas the fungi causing the subcutaneous systemic infections, they are slow growers. And this is the picture showing rapid growers. So Candida is a rapid grower. So it is seen like bacterial type of colonies are seen in the tube. And some cottony type for Rhizopus and Mucor, you can see this cottony type of growth, which is the rapid grower. And slow grower, velvety type of consistency is seen for slow growers. And second one, macroscopic feature you can identify is pigmentation. Pigmentation you can see at the back of the fungi. At the back side of the tube, we can observe the pigmentation, whether it is black in color or red in color. Some fungi, Demotecious fungi or Pioid fungi, produce black colored pigment, and dermatophyte fungi, Trichophyton metagraphite produces red color pigment. And the third one, texture, you have to observe what is the texture, whether it is smooth, waxy, leathery, velvety, yeast-like, cottony, granular, or powdery. That texture also you have to observe. And topography, what is topography? Whether it is in the form of, whether it is a plane, or whether there are radial grooves, or whether it is whether it has folded appearance, or cribriform or varicose brain-like appearance, that also you can observe, and you can assess which fungi it is. Then next thing you have to do the identification by microscopically again. So you got the culture. These are the culture plates of fungi. And macroscopically you get an idea that if it is a black colored fungi, it is a Pioid fungi. If it is this type of grooves, radial grooves are present, and velvety, dermatophyte fungi. But you have to confirm it. How will you confirm it? You have to go again for microscopy, and from that culture, from this plate, you have to do culture microscopy. How will you do the microscopy? There are 4 methods: teased mount, slide culture technique, cellophane tape method, germ tube, Delmo-plate culture method, sugar assimilation test. These are some methods done to observe the fungi under microscope. First one is teased mount. In teased mount, from culture plate, if this type of growth, cottony growth is there, or in tubes you can have the growth with the help of a spud. You can collect the fungal growth, and you have to keep on a slide containing drop of LPCB. You have to take a clean glass slide with a drop of LPCB, lactophenol cotton blue mount, and that teased fungal culture is taken and is kept on the drop of LPCB with the help of needles. You have to tease it, separate the filaments. Then a cover slip is placed and observed under the microscope for appearance of different septate hypha or aseptate hypha, the macroconidia, microconidia, sporangiospores, conidiospores, everything you can observe in that LPCB mount. But one disadvantage is there: when you do the teasing procedures, these structures are broken and it does not give a clear good image. So in order to avoid the damage caused by teasing, which is done in teased mount, you go for a better method called slide culture method. It takes a lot of time with tedious procedure, but gives a good morphology of the fungus. It can, so what is required for doing a slide culture? A petri plate, a glass petri plate is required, a glass rod, a clean glass slide, cover slips, and 2 agar blocks are required. 2 agar blocks are required for doing a fungal culture. So what you do, you take the agar block on a clean glass slide, then the fungal culture with the help of a spud you take and you inoculate on 4 corners of the agar block, and even in the center also you can inoculate. Then a cover slip is placed, and this one is placed on a glass rod. Cotton moistened with water is kept for moisture, and closed with the petri plate is closed, and it is kept in the incubator for some period. Then you can observe the fungal growth. After you observe the growth of the fungus on the agar block, you can take the cover slip. You can take the cover slip, and what you have to do, again you take another slide. Like this only you have to visualize. You can take another slide, then place the agar block here. Agar block. No, not agar block. Then you have to take another slide. Then you take the cover slip on a drop of LPCB. You place the cover slip, and no teasing is required here. No need to do any teasing. Just remove the cover slip and place it on a drop of LPCB on a slide and observe under the microscope. The morphology is not damaged because teasing is not done. The cover slip is lifted and is kept on the LPCB drop, and you can observe the morphological structures clearly without any yes, there is no disruption in the morphology. You can observe nicely, and you can judge the, you can confirm which fungus it is. Then cellophane tape method. Since slide culture method takes time again, it is taking more time. One of the easiest method is cellophane tape method, where you have the growth, the fungal growth is there. Then with the help of a cellophane, you can take a cellophane tape, place it on the fungal growth. Place the cellophane tape on the fungal growth, and the fungal growth is collected on the cellophane tape. Then you take another slide with a drop of LPCB, and then you place the cellophane over the drop of LPCB, and you can observe the fungal morphology under the microscope. This is easiest and quickest way than slide culture method. There are other methods of identification. For Candida, there are other methods like germ tube test, Delmoplate method, carbohydrate fermentation test, carbohydrate assimilation test. Germ tube test for Candida, from Candida budding is, you can see some tubes coming. The sample, the Candida growth is inoculated with the plasma in the incubator. That you can learn while studying in detail about Candida. Some tube-like structures arise from the budding yeast-like cell. They are called as germ tubes. So germ tube test and Delmoplate methods are some methods of identification for Candida. Hair perforation test and dermatophyte test medium, identification medium are used for growing, for identifying dermatophytes. And Cryptococcus is urease positive. So urease test can be done to confirm the presence of Cryptococcus. Other methods of identification are there, like immunological methods, that is antibody and antigen detection methods. So what are the antigen antibody detection methods? Like ELISA, immunodiffusion test, agglutination test, and complement fixation test are some antibody detection methods. And antigen detection methods like latex agglutination test for cryptococcal antigen from CSF sample. It gives immediate identification of Cryptococcus. So CSF sample you take and you can test for the antigen by method called latex agglutination test. Immediately within minutes you can tell whether Cryptococcus is present or not. So these are some other methods of identification: antigen detection method, antibody detection method by ELISA, agglutination test, complement fixation test, immunodiffusion test. And immunohistochemistry is also done. These are used for detecting antigens or proteins on cells of a tissue section. Proteins on cells of a tissue section you can do, that is immunohistochemistry. There are other methods of identification. Tests for metabolites in body fluids is done by gas liquid chromatography, and some delayed hypersensitivity tests are done. It is done in earlier days. This skin test for histoplasma, blastomyces, coccidioides, paracoccidioides, endophytes, porothrix, candida. Some skin tests are available not for diagnosis purpose, but it is done in earlier days for epidemiological purpose only. Those skin tests are done. And molecular methods, that is identification of nucleic acid, DNA, can be done. Some probes are available. That is done by PCR, polymerase chain reaction, DNA sequencing method. It is little bit costly. Some probes are available for identifying certain fungi, and the DNA or nucleic acid can be identified. So these are the other methods of identification. And what are the like antibacterial drugs? Some drugs are which act on the fungal cell wall are available. They are called as antifungal drugs. Depending on the site of action, the mechanism of action is also vary, and there are different types of antifungal drugs. The drugs which disrupt the fungal membrane. Examples of the drugs that disrupt the fungal cell membrane are amphotericin, which is commonly used, nystatin, ketoconazole, fluconazole, itraconazole, meconazole, clotrimazole. These are some antifungals used which are used that act by disrupting the fungal cell membrane. Even terbinafine, caspofungin. These are some drugs that act on cell membrane. Desophilvin, it inhibits the mitosis procedure, flucytosine, that inhibit the DNA synthesis. Other drugs like tolnaptate and cyclopirox are also used. So this is the fungal cell wall. In the fungal cell wall, you know, there are glucons, chitins, mannans are present in the fungal cell wall. So the drugs are acting directly. So it is acting, amphotericin B, nystatin, it is acting on the cell membrane. Echinocandins, they are acting on the enzymes present in the cell membrane. So azoles, amphotericin B, nystatin, echinocandins, terbinafine, they all act on cell wall. They disrupt this fungal cell wall. So when these antifungal drugs are taken, the fungal cell wall is destroyed and they inhibit the growth of the fungus. Flucytosine, it is acting on DNA and RNA synthesis. It acts by inhibiting the DNA and RNA synthesis. So that is about the laboratory diagnosis of fungal infections. Thank you.